Hello, my Entropia friends. We are on Arcadia, and we're going to do a short hunt, or at least it'll be a short video of a hunt. Going after Tiarak. I like to hunt these guys for their hides. It's a really nice blue hide, suitable for a master coat, cognac coat, sort of like that. We are up here at Sanctuary Cove. It's on this island up here at the very top of the landmass. And here's the Sanctuary Cove TP. We'll be hunting most of this here. So let's see how it goes. Come on, shoot. Let me that's not what I want. Options, interface, enable the loot windows. You'll be able to see what it is that we're scoring off of these guys. I'm using an ISIS HLS CDF edition pistol. I'll show you the specs. Where is it? There it is. It does 33 damage, 63 shots a minute, range of about 35 meters, and it takes about 800 per shot is the cost of operating this gun. All right. I was hoping we'd have something a little more than youngs out here. I am on stage 4 of a mission that they've got a mission chain on these things. And I've got to kill 4,800, so when you got to kill a bunch of something, it's better to go after something that you can kill easily and fast. You don't want to waste a lot of time. It's nice to get enough loot to at least break even on the hunt, but the purpose of this is to kill 4,800 of these. Let's get a good look at what these things are here. Not that. That. Oh man. Well, that's disappointing. I thought I'd be able to show you a picture of them. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but there is a smaller version of these called the Zadul. And at the most, they're probably half the size, and they're white. I believe that there are 2 versions of this same mob that are more dangerous, shall we say. I know that the highest version of it is something that I'm not sure I can take. They have a lot of hit points. They're pretty tanky. I might be able to kill one if I was able to stand in front of it for a while. I'm pretty sure I can't. Here's that hide that I was talking about. It makes a real pretty dark blue texture. But I believe that Arcadia has turned down the drop rate on those things, as they have on most of the hides. I think that Entropia Universe is a great game. I've been playing it for what, 15, 16 years. I took a bit of a break in the middle of it, but I've played way too many hours of this thing. However, and if you've ever seen any of the old videos, they have come just unbelievably far from the old days. It's so much nicer graphically than what it used to be. But I sometimes get the feeling that they're trying to morph into more of just a shoot 'em up game. When I started out, I was a miner. I was able to make a living mining. You really didn't have to be that good, because there was a market for most everything. You could stand around at Port Atlantis or at Twin Peaks. Atlas Haven used to be really busy back then. And if you stood there long enough, you know, you could sell everything that you were able to pull out of the ground. And the reason that you could sell it was because there was a active crafting community, and you know, the crafters would buy from the resellers or perhaps the auction, or if you were able to make a friend of a crafter, you could have an arrangement where you would, as a miner, you'd be able to sell your stuff directly to them. But it's really hard to do that nowadays. The miners can't make a living because there's no active market anymore for the crafters. There is a certain amount of crafting that's going on, but it's primarily weapons. Maybe some vehicles. There's not near the clothing market that there used to be. Everything seems to be funneling player activity into hunting and PvP. Of course, that's just my 2-peck, you know. That's not to say that I'm thinking about leaving the game, because I'm hooked on it, such as it is. If any of y'all have an opinion on how you think the game is going, put a comment down there in the notes area. I would be curious to find out if I'm the only one that thinks this, or I know that the game's not near as social as it used to be. We used to have areas like Port Atlantis and Hadesheim or Hadesheim, however it originally was pronounced. That's where a big crater is now on Calypso. There used to be a city right there, and apparently when the game was first created, that city was supposed to be a real city, and it had some shops. You know, you could buy clothing, you could buy weapons, you could buy mining equipment. It had a couple of bars. I used to use one of them as my base of operations. It was always nice to have some place to get away from everybody. But it never was actually completed. It wound up being mostly facades. You were able to go into some of the buildings, but you'd find out that they were just a shell, you know, a graphical shell. And a lot of the times you weren't able to get out. You'd have to hit T in order to escape, which is, for a new player, that's pretty traumatic when you get yourself in a bind like that and you don't know how to get out. But the terminals, trade terminals, the storage, that sort of thing, was on a little island that was just on the edge of the town. And in those days you could actually sit down on the ground, or you could lie down, and folks would log in and they might use that area simply to take a break and chat with a buddy that might be in game. And, you know, societies would have little meetings, little get-togethers there. It was the same thing for areas around Port Atlantis and Twin Peaks, and like I said, Atlas Haven was a pretty popular place. Port Atlantis was an really interesting place. When you first join the game, that's where you materialized. You know, the whole premise of the game was that you were on your way to Calypso as a colonist. You were gonna start a new life, but there was a war with the robots, and your ship that was taking you to Calypso got shot down. That was the bad news. The good news was that the rescue ships were able to find enough of your DNA to reconstitute you. They had the technology to rebuild you. But the other bad news was that, unfortunately, while they were able to save you, your wallet didn't make it. So when you came off the ship there at Port Atlantis, you were issued a orange jumpsuit, some underwear, and a pair of shoes, and that was it. And you were left to find your way, you know, to make your way. but there was always somebody there to help you out. Come on, lag. There we go. Yeah, you could always find somebody to help. But at Port Atlantis, they had the reception area, and it was like a landing area for ships. It was like a truck yard or something like that. You know, you saw vehicles just kind of parked around there. And they had a desk where you could interact with NCPs and you could get instruction on how to do different things to get started. And from there you just kind of follow the open spaces on around to the marketplace. And it truly was a marketplace. It was like a market square, and that's where everybody would meet. You had folks that were asking for help. You had people that were offering different services. You had miners hawking their wares, you know. Just spamming, you know, that they had this for sale at this price. And you had crafters that were doing the same thing, asking to buy such and such a material at the price that they wanted to give. And I mean, it was like that pretty much 24 hours a day. It was awesome. There, if you wandered around the town a little bit, you would find that there was a museum, and it had stuffed mobs. It was like a natural history museum. And it was really interesting. At Twin Peaks was another marketplace, but it was almost exclusively miners or crafters that wanted to buy ores and end-matters, and you know, they're spamming what they wanted. And you had the miners, you know, the people that didn't have large quantities of stuff, and so, you know, they'd be hollering out that they've got so much of this at such and such a percentage. And then, you know, there'd be some haggling back and forth when buyers and sellers finally hooked up. There was a PvP ring, and there was always people that wanted to try out their hand at PvP. Atlas Haven seemed to be where the people would hang out and craft for some reason. And if you happen to have something that would be be considered a crafting material, you know, if you had wool or, you know, such and such a bone or hides, you know, that could be refined into leathers, you know, or just anything, you know, anything that something could be made out of, you could sell to the crafters at Atlas Haven. And it was really awesome, the sense of community that there was. Yeah, there's always a certain number of people that are looking to separate you from your pet, you know, but for the most part, everybody was in there to help the new people out. There were no vehicles, and so you had to get where you were going on foot. At Port Atlantis, there were always people that were offering to take groups of new people on TP runs. And usually there would be a couple of people conducting the run. And a couple of the people would be at the front leading the way and figuring out the best path to get around, you know, the herds of mobs. There were people around the sides and the people around the rear of the group, just to keep everybody together and help the stragglers. Oops, there he is. There were rescue services. There was what I assume was a society that their deal was that they would rescue people that were trapped at these outposts and these places, you know, that they would be killed by a mob out in the middle of nowhere, and so they'd spawn to some outpost, and it'd be a place without a TP. And it might be surrounded by a herd of Aatrox, or, you know, whatever the big bad mobs were back then. Aatrax. Oh gosh. They were the two big ones, I guess. But anyway, it would be impossible sometimes to be able to get away from the outpost, and you would go to the forum and leave a message that you were trapped somewhere. And then you just kind of hang tight. And eventually somebody would come out to get you. You know, and they'd have to cut an opening through that herd for you to be able to get out, but you would be rescued. And they did it just because it was a nice thing to do to help people out. We used to have a couple of competing internet radio stations, you know, that were Entropia oriented. The only one I can really think of offhand is Atlas Haven Radio. And then eventually when Arcadia came online, some of the people that were personalities on Atlas Haven became personalities on Arcadia Radio. And they'd organize dance parties. Here on Arcadia, they used to have them frequently at Sanctuary Cove TP, and also at Celeste Quarry. And over on Calypso, right straight out south from Port Atlantis, there's an island. It's one of the first islands that you come to, if not the first island that you come to. And it has a little cove that has a permanent bonfire. And I don't know how many times people would meet out there for a beach party. And Atlas Haven, or I don't suppose Arcadia Radio went back out there once Arcadia came online, but we used to have a lot of get-togethers out there, and it was just because everybody was just so social. And I think that's the main thing that's missing from the game today. I don't believe there's the sense of community that there was before. Of course, you know, with the sense of community, not everybody in the family gets along, you know. And there were people that were assholes just because they could be assholes. But it was nothing serious, and if somebody really needed help with something, everybody was willing to do what they could to help you out. I think it probably was space that killed off the sense of community. All of a sudden, there were too many other places that people could go. First came Rocktopia, I think. And Never Die set that up supposedly in partnership with the rock and roll band Motorhead. And that's why there's a Lemmy's Castle and that Motorhead concert area where the can't remember what those guys were, but they were supposed to be the security. But for some reason that just never quite made it. I'm sorry, I guess that's just what happens when you start getting old. You start thinking about what you assume or you think were the good old days. That they probably weren't near as good as what you think. Considering the graphics that we had back then. If it wasn't for the sense of community, I'm not sure the game would have lasted. I used to joke that playing Arcadia or Entropia Universe was like having a second job. You know, I'd spend my day at work, then come home and figure out how I was going to make a living in the game. But let's see what kind of loot we got. Just in wrapping stuff up. Tiarak nail. As you can see, it's a lot of the usual stuff. Nothing spectacular. I got 18 head worth of eye oil. That's probably the big winner. No weapons, no armors, no duds, no chips. Just a good way of getting rid of some ammunition. Excuse me while that was exciting. Well, I'm sorry, I went on way longer than I expected to. And I'm sorry that I ran my mouth like I did. I didn't mean to get lost in the good old days like that. Those days aren't coming back. It's never going to be what it used to be. In some ways it's worlds better, and in other ways, like I said, it'll never be as social as it was. It's just too spread out. But anyhow, if you've made it this far, I really do appreciate it. You don't know how much I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Maybe the next time I'll have a little more interesting mob to kill, something that you'll at least wonder if I'm going to survive or not. These guys are really too easy. So, anyway, I appreciate you tuning in, and if nothing else in the game, just try to have fun. That's what we're out here for, I guess. So, we'll see y'all next time.